A starving teen girl was found beside her dead mother until a cowboy said, "Not anymore, you're mine." The sky was the color of iron dust, low and growling, as the rider came out of the wind. No one rode that trail by accident. Not in June. Not with a storm building on the edge of the world. He came slow, coat flapping, wide brim hat pulled low, a shadow on a bone-colored horse. The wind dragged a ribbon of dust behind him, swirling like smoke off a dying fire. There was no town, just the ruin of one, a broken fence, a water trough dry since winter, and a cluster of stones that once held a roof. But the rider wasn't looking for a place. He was following vultures. They circled lazy above a patch of dead mesquite. He didn't speak, just pressed his knees to the horse's ribs and let it drift that way, like a man drawn to trouble he already knew. When he saw the body, he didn't stop, just dismounted in one motion, boots landing hard in the cracked dirt. The woman was face down, hair tangled in dry weeds. Her arms curled like she was still holding something. Her dress was torn at the hem and stiff with sun. He knelt beside her, touched 2 fingers to her neck. Nothing. Not for hours now. Then he saw the girl. She was sitting half in shadow, half in dust, bones poking through the sleeves of a too-big shirt. Her knees were drawn up to her chest, bare feet tucked under, and her eyes were 2 stones dug into a face that hadn't cried yet. Her skin was blistered, her lips cracked. In her hand, a kitchen knife, rusted, dull, held with the stubborn grip of someone who'd never meant to use it, but would. She didn't speak. Neither did he. The wind spoke for them, lifting the edges of the dead woman's hair, shaking the mesquite leaves, like dry bones in a jar. Then, slowly, the girl raised the knife. Her arm trembled like a gut-shot rabbit, but her eyes didn't move. They stayed on him. He didn't reach for his gun. Instead, he said it quiet, like it wasn't the first time. "Easy now." She didn't lower it, but her eyes flickered, just once, to the horse, then back to him. "I ain't here to hurt you," he added, voice rough as gravel but steady. "Ain't here to take nothing neither." She swallowed hard, like it hurt. He looked back at the body in the dirt, then at the girl. Dust blew between them. "You got a name?" he asked. "Nothing." "All right," he said. He stood slow. "Then I'll just call you alive. For now." He took 1 step toward her. The knife twitched. "You gonna use that?" he asked, almost gently. She blinked. The blade dipped an inch. He took another step, and then she fainted, her body folded sideways like a scarecrow come undone, knife slipping from her fingers, catching the light for just a second before it hit the dust. The rider didn't move at first, just watched her lying there, skin stretched tight over her bones, the kind of thin that didn't come from growing fast, the kind that came from not eating. Then he bent down, lifted her like a sack of corn, and carried her back to the horse. She weighed less than a rifle. He swung into the saddle with her slumped against him, one arm braced across her back. The wind kicked up, stinging his face with grit. Thunder rolled low across the plains behind them. As the first drops fell, big, slow, and hot, the rider turned toward the hills, toward something not dead, not broken. He didn't look back. But if he had, he would have seen the vultures still circling. Only now they weren't alone. A second figure stood in the distance, half hidden behind a cactus ridge, watching, waiting. But the rider never looked back. He just rode on, into the storm. The girl didn't eat the stew. She sat at the edge of the saloon's back room, spoon in hand, staring at the tin bowl while the man, she still didn't know his name, stood near the window, watching the street through a slit in the curtain. Outside, the town sat still as a coffin. Just 4 buildings strung along a sun-cracked trail, a saloon, a stable, a supply shack, and a church with no bell. The girl finally dipped her spoon, raised it to her lips, and chewed slow. Not from manners. Her teeth just weren't used to work anymore. He didn't watch her eat, but when her hand shook, he stepped closer and pushed a glass of water near. That's all. When the horses came in, the sound didn't belong. Not hooves, not really. The sound was weight, pressure, like boots stomping through your ribs before the feet even hit the ground. The man moved from the window. Wordless, he walked to the girl, took the bowl, and set it aside. "Stay here," he said. She didn't answer. Out front, 5 riders dismounted in perfect silence. Not one laugh. Not one word. They wore dust like armor, and their eyes like dead coins. They walked into the saloon like they owned the air. Inside, 4 men already sat nursing drinks. None of them turned. The tallest of the riders stepped to the bar. The barman didn't look up. Just dried a glass that didn't need drying. Trail's gone cold, the tall one said, voice smooth like blood sliding off a knife. You seen him? The barman twitched his chin. Not a nod, not a no. Just a maybe. We tracked him through the flats. Bent grass, light blood. Girl's small. Hungry. Man's older, heavy boot. Army issue. Faded brands on the horse. Saddle split on the right side. He tapped the counter once, slow. They came through. No one answered. One of the gang, young, scar across the jaw, walked slow along the bar, tapping the brim of each bottle with a silver coin. 1, 2, 3. Her daddy owed us, he said, half to himself. Owed more than a man can pay. He stopped, looked around the room. That debt runs in blood. From the back of the room, a voice came low. You always collect on corpses. They all turned. The cowboy stood by the poker table, one hand resting on the chair back, the other near his hip. The tall man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. We got no quarrel with you, stranger. Hand her over and be on your way. The cowboy looked around, slow. You see her with me? The scarred one stepped forward. We know she was. This town ain't but 10 people, and one's deaf. Don't take much asking to find a trail. Behind the bar, the barman stopped moving. The tall one placed both hands flat on the counter. We want the girl. She's not yours. The cowboy's eyes narrowed. You're wrong. Scarjaw grinned. She ain't even worth the trouble. The cowboy didn't blink. Still wrong. Silence thickened. The girl watched from behind the backroom door, heart loud in her ears. Her fingers curled tight around the frame, breath held sharp in her throat. Then a glass shattered, not dropped, but shot. As the barrel of the cowboy's gun finished the sentence his mouth hadn't spoken. No one had seen him draw. The bullet had landed dead center in the bottle beside Scarjaw's hand. The gang didn't flinch. Not a man reached for steel. The cowboy turned the chair around and sat. If she ain't worth trouble, he said, voice level. Why'd 5 of you crawl across the basin in a dust storm for her? Scarjaw's mouth twitched. She's ours. No, said the cowboy. She's mine. The word hung. Behind the door. The girl pressed one hand to her ribs, where her heart fought like a trapped bird. Outside, the sky darkened. Wind creaked the boards under the eaves. The tall man pushed off from the bar, slow, and nodded to his crew. They moved together, not in fear, but in rhythm, like men who'd done this 100 times. He stopped at the doorway, looked back once. We'll come calling, he said. Sundown tomorrow. The cowboy didn't answer. When the saloon door shut behind them, no one spoke. Not the barman, not the drinkers, not the cowboy. He just sat there a minute longer, then stood, walked to the back, and opened the door. The girl stood straight, chin raised, eyes wide but burning. You said I'm yours, she said. He nodded once. She looked past him toward the door, where the wind was starting to howl. They'll kill you, she said. He didn't answer. Outside, the storm had finally touched the edge of town. The first dust curled down the street like a warning. She stepped forward. Then let me help. He looked at her, just looked, then turned and walked out. She followed. The wind rose behind them. The saloon windows rattled. The storm was coming. And this time, it had names. They left before dawn. No fire. No trail. Just the sound of hooves slipping through ash and gravel, like ghosts passing through a graveyard too proud to call itself one. The girl rode behind him now, not in front. She held the rifle across her knees, like she'd been born with it, though it still jolted in her grip with every step. They didn't speak. He watched the horizon. She watched him. They rode west, into canyons that whispered things neither of them wanted to hear. By noon, the heat had peeled the sky into layers. The cowboy dismounted, checked a set of faint tracks in the dust, boot prints, shallow, wide set. He stood jaw tight. They're closing. She didn't ask how he knew. They pressed on. Hours passed. A vulture watched them from a fence post that had no fence. The cowboy spit in the dirt as they rode by. By dusk, they reached it, the ranch, or what was left. 3 walls of a cabin, collapsed barn, and a well half-choked with dry sage. He stopped at the gate, dismounted, and stared. "This was yours?" the girl asked. He didn't answer. She slid down, bones aching, walked past him toward the cabin, looked inside. A table, 1 leg gone. A rusted lantern, half a boot. Something that maybe been a blanket once. She turned. "You stayed here." "A long time ago." She waited. He didn't say more. They worked in silence, rebuilt a section of fence, cleared the brush from the well, dragged a broken cot inside. At nightfall, they sat on the porch with a tin of beans between them. No fire, just stars, blinking hard and fast like the sky was warning them. She broke the silence. "Why'd you leave?" He didn't look at her. "Too much blood." She turned the rifle over in her lap. "Yours?" He shook his head. "Not all." Wind moved through the grass. She asked, quieter, "Did they take someone from you?" He looked at her, really looked, for the first time since they'd left the town. "I let them," he said. She didn't ask more. Just sat there, rifle across her knees, the same way he had back in town, like it might speak first, before either of them did. The attack came at dusk the next day. They'd been waiting. The girl was in the loft, rifle aimed through a crack in the boards. He crouched behind the stone trough, with a shotgun and 2 knives. The riders came as shadows, not men. For now. No warning. No words. Just thunder. The first horse fell before it reached the gate. She'd fired. The shot punched through air like a door slamming on a scream. 1 man dropped. Didn't rise. The second kicked through the front of the barn, gun raised, mouth open, and caught Steele between the ribs. The cowboy didn't speak. Just stepped back and let the body fall. The third circled wide, tried the side window. The girl was faster. Click. Crack. Blood misted the broken pane. She blinked once. Just once. Then quiet. Too quiet. "Where's the 4th?" she whispered. The cowboy turned too late. The last man wasn't outside. He was in the house. Behind her. A scream tore the sky. The cowboy lunged through the door, gun raised. The girl was on the floor, crawling backward, blood on her leg, breath ragged. The rider had a knife. The cowboy fired. The rider didn't fall. The girl did. The rider turned, snarling, lunging, then stopped. Steel burst through his chest from behind. She'd picked up the broken cot leg, rusted nail still sharp, and driven it into his back as he leaned over her. The rider gasped. Dropped. The girl lay still. Pale. Breathing, but barely. The cowboy dropped beside her, hands shaking. "Let me see." "No," she said, pushing his hand away. "It's bad." She stared at him. "I'll live." He looked at her leg. Blood, thick and dark, but not pumping, not deep. She'd be all right. Eventually. He wrapped it tight, carried her to the cot frame, laid her down, sat beside her. She opened her eyes again, dazed. "I killed 2. He nodded. "You gonna say something?" she asked, voice dry as cotton. He didn't. She turned her face toward the dark ceiling. "First time I ever killed anything but a snake." He waited. "Feels the same," she whispered, "except worse." He reached out, but stopped. Let his hand drop. "I ain't scared," she added. "I know." They sat in silence, the bodies cooling outside, the wind trying to get in through every crack in the boards. Then she asked, "Why me?" He didn't answer. Not this time. Not with words. But he picked up the rifle, laid it across her chest, and placed her hand on it. Then stood and walked outside. To bury the dead. To wait for dawn. To breathe. And inside, she held the rifle, eyes open, staring at the roof like she was seeing something else entirely. And maybe she was. He buried them before sunrise. 3 shallow graves behind the shed. 1 headstone made from a broken door plank, another from a feed bucket hammered flat. The third had nothing, just a pile of rocks, as if that man didn't deserve even a name. The girl watched from the porch, her leg bandaged, the rifle across her lap, like a sleeping dog. The wind had dropped. What was left behind wasn't peace, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something has broken and won't ever quite fit the same again. He straightened after the last grave, wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his wrist. The cut above his eye had dried but still stung when he blinked. One of the bastards had caught him with a knuckle-duster before dying. He walked past the graves, without looking back. The porch creaked under his boots. "You eat?" he asked. She shook her head. "You?" "No." He sat down beside her, pulled a tin of beans from the saddlebag, opened it with his knife. They passed it back and forth, each eating slow, like chewing through memory. "You could leave now," she said, not looking at him. "They're dead." He didn't answer right away. "You said there were 5, she added. "Only 4 came." He nodded once. "One always waits." Her fingers tightened around the rifle. "So it ain't over?" "No." She didn't ask how he knew. The sun crept higher. A hawk circled overhead, then veered away like it knew something still lingered here. The girl pointed toward the ruined barn. "That yours?" "Used to be." "You built it?" "Helped." She was quiet then. "Did you lose someone here?" He nodded. "A boy." She didn't ask whose. Instead, she stood, wincing as her leg caught beneath her. She limped down the porch steps and toward the barn. He let her go. Inside, she found a busted saddle, mouse-bitten tack, and a rusted branding iron. She picked it up. The mark was faint, a circle around an arrowhead. She brought it back out. "This yours?" He looked at it, took it from her, ran a thumb over the metal. "Used to mean something." "Still does," she said. He turned it in his hands, then dropped it into the bucket by the door. The silence stretched. Finally, he spoke. "You shoot clean yesterday." She nodded. "You remember their faces?" "Not all." "That's good." "I remember the last one," she said. "The one inside." He didn't reply. "I don't regret it," she added. "I know." She sat again, her body stiff but her voice steady. "You think the 5th one's coming?" He nodded. "When?" "Soon." Her eyes narrowed. "Then we wait." "No." She looked over. "You want to run?" He looked out across the land, dry, scorched, endless. "This place can't hold more blood. Not mine. Not yours." She stared at the dirt, at the trail where they'd come in 2 days ago. "Then where?" He stood. "Somewhere he won't expect." Her brow furrowed. "You mean go to him?" He nodded. She blinked, then smiled. Not joy, but something harder. Something older than her years. "Good," she said. They packed light. 1 bedroll. 2 rifles. What ammo they had. The girl took the iron and placed it in the saddlebag. He didn't stop her. They didn't speak on the way out. The ranch behind them shrank with every mile. Soon it was just a shadow on the edge of memory. That night, they camped under the ribs of a dry canyon, where a stream used to run. She cleaned her rifle. He sharpened his knife. "You trust me?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Don't need to." "Still," she said. "You do." He paused, then nodded. She picked up a small rock, turned it in her fingers. "When I was little, I thought dying would feel like falling. Fast, hard." She set the rock down. "It don't. It's slow. Like forgetting. Like your bones don't matter." He looked at her. "But you're still here." She met his eyes. "So are you." Something in the fire cracked. The sound echoed through the canyon like a shot. Neither flinched. Before dawn, she found him standing at the edge of the rise, rifle slung over his back, watching the eastern sky bleed orange. "You ready?" she asked. He didn't turn. Just said, "He's waiting in Lie Creek. North edge." She nodded. "You know that how?" "Because it's the last place I'd go," he said. "And he's always liked thinking backwards." The girl shifted her weight. "He got something of yours." He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She took a step closer. "We gonna end it?" He nodded. Her voice dropped. "For good." This time he looked at her. And for a moment, everything stilled. The wind, the breath between them, the weight of every mile behind. He didn't say yes. Didn't have to. She understood. Lie Creek wasn't a town. It was a scar in the earth with 1 shack, 3 dead trees, and a creek that hadn't run in years. The wind made more noise than the people, and the people made none at all. They arrived near dusk. The girl rode in ahead of him, hat low, rifle wrapped in cloth. Dust clung to her boots like second skin. Her legs still hurt, but she didn't limp anymore. Not where anyone could see. He followed slow, letting the air stretch between them. One of them needed to be watched. The other needed to be bait. They both knew which was which. He tied the horse at the edge of the old corral and stepped onto the porch of a leaning shack with a door that hung open but never creaked. The girl sat on the step. "He's inside," she said. "I saw the glove on the table." He nodded. "You want me to wait?" He didn't answer. So she stood. Then she said, "Don't let him talk long. He talks to confuse you." "I remember." She paused. "You afraid?" He looked at her. "No." She held out the iron, the old branding one. "Take it anyway." He took it, then went inside. The shack was dark and smelled like sweat and gun oil. One chair, one table, one man. The fifth rider sat with his boots up and a scattergun across his lap. He didn't reach for it. "Didn't think you'd come," he said. The cowboy didn't sit. "Figured you'd send the girl. She's quicker." Silence. The fifth rider smiled. "She's got the same eyes as her mother. You noticed that." The cowboy stepped forward. "Don't." "What?" "Speak truth." "Hell, I didn't touch her. I just cleaned up after the ones who did." Steel whispered out of its sheath. The fifth rider laughed once, then coughed. "That how this goes. You cut me up and ride off. That's all. You followed her mother to the desert and left her to rot beside her own child." He raised a brow. "I didn't shoot her. You left her. We just filled the hole." The cowboy struck. The knife went in low, just under the ribs. Slow. Quiet. The fifth rider sucked in air, but didn't scream. The cowboy twisted. "You took everything from her," he said. "Now I take what's left." The rider coughed blood. "You think this ends something?" "No," the cowboy said. "But it ends you." He walked out into the night, like he hadn't touched blood at all. The girl stood there. She didn't ask. He handed her the iron. "Brand the door," he said. She looked at him, then walked over, heated it in the fire pit, and pressed the old circle arrow into the wood beside the frame. Smoke rose, the scent of old iron and purpose. He watched her work. She looked up. "Now what?" "We ride." "Where?" "Where there ain't names on wind." She nodded. They saddled up in silence. Left Lie Creek behind like a spent match. Miles passed. The desert grew darker. She finally said, "You think we're free now?" "No." She looked over. "Then why does it feel like we are?" He didn't answer. They kept riding. Sometime near morning, they stopped near an old tree that had survived a lightning strike and lived anyway. She took off her hat, looked up at the stars. "I want land one day." "You'll have it." She looked over. "You'll stay." His jaw moved. "If you ask." She smiled just once, then sat in the dirt, back against the tree. He joined her, tired bones and quiet breath. They didn't speak again for a long time, just waited for the sky to change. When it did, she said, "You think the dead ever stop riding?" He looked out across the waking land. Nothing but earth and silence, and the kind of wind that forgets everything. "No," he said. She nodded. "Me neither." The sun crested the ridge. They didn't flinch, just sat there, side by side. And the world, for the first time in a long time, didn't ask for blood. It just watched and waited.